Hello, everyone. I hope you guys are doing well. We ended up moving the live stream. Oh my gosh, excuse the bounce. We ended up moving the live stream from yesterday to today, Sunday, March 10th. There's been daylight savings in effect here in America. So it's 12:04, but it kind of feels like 11:04. I have been traveling so much. I was in Boston this morning, actually, 7 hours ago. So I came on a super early flight. I was at a breakdance competition all day at Northeastern. It was so cool seeing all these different universities there. UMass Amherst, UMass Boston, and Princeton was there. And they have a huge breakdance team. The Brown team was there. There were even some teams from California that they flew out, so that was all really exciting. But today we'll be talking a little bit about how to get into any program you want. So as always, guys, this is just an opportunity for you all to ask me questions, and I'm here to serve. And I'm curious to know where you guys are tuning in from, what topics or questions or content you want me to help create. So let us know. I also know that a lot of decisions have been coming out, so that's really exciting. Let me know if you have any good news you want to share, or if you're still waiting for some. That's also totally fine too. I think that you guys will probably hear back from all the schools by April 1st, I believe. I remember April 1st being the very last day where I got decisions back. It might be different for a few other programs, like grad school programs or transfer programs, but what I'm talking about here are undergraduate college programs, as well as some high school programs too. And then, of course, there's summer programs too, guys. There's so many programs, and you'll be applying to programs for pretty much the rest of your life. So that's why it's helpful to talk about how to get into them. Okay, we have a first question. Tarek Mai, I'm studying my last year of high school, and I want to apply to a university in America. Is there any help? Yeah, that's a really broad question for sure. Hi. Thanks for everyone else who's here and saying hello. That's wonderful. But yeah, back to Tarek's question. It kind of depends on what kind of school you're going for, what kind of program you're going for, where you're applying from as well. If you're in your last year of high school, wouldn't that make you a senior? I think that people have already applied by this point. So I'm not sure if you need to take a gap year or something like that, or if you've already applied to universities before. It's a bit unclear. It sounds like Tarek is an international student. Okay, but we'll keep this video pretty short and sweet. We're all busy people here, but let me present my screen and share what we have on some slides. Let's see. Present, share screen. Yes, it's easiest with two monitors. Thank you for letting me know. Okay. Yay, private high school results are out today. PEA, Ray, good for you. Yeah, another one of my students also got into Exeter, my alma mater. That's where I went for 4 years. Super awesome place. So maybe you got some good news from boarding schools today. That would be exciting. And yeah, really a life-changing decision. Going to Exeter was one of the best things that ever happened to me. So for those of you who don't know, Phillips Exeter Academy is a private boarding school in New Hampshire. So you live there. And I went for 4 years. It's also ranked as the top 5 for a long time. It was ranked as the number 1 high school in America. And yeah, it's legit. It was definitely, I got a better education there than at Yale. And all my close friends are from Exeter. I still keep in touch with them. Some of them work in the company with me, and then others are just dear friends, entrepreneurs that I know. Okay, so I'm going to just be guiding you guys through 3 clear principles. The first being uniqueness and fit. So let's talk a little bit about that. One thing that I think that students don't really understand is the very first concept is you kind of want to be like a fish that swims against the current. You want to be a fish that swims against the current. You have to think about, what is the cliche? What is everyone else doing? So an example of that would be, I knew that there are some classic cliches that maybe you guys don't know about. One is really obvious, like Asian kid in STEM, right? So Asian kid in STEM, if we want to stand out in that, if you're genuinely interested in STEM, you have 2 options. The first is to be so good, so world class that you instantly stand out. And we're talking about the scale of national or international awards. It can be done, but it's kind of hard. Another thing to consider is that it's easier to stand out on an international or national level if you pick a more niche topic. So instead of picking computer science or math, where you're doing math Olympiad, IMO, things like that, or computer science, I think there's like USICO, right? You could pick another dimension of engineering or STEM, which would be a little bit easier. So actually, like, let's fuse together two of them. You could focus on, let's say, neurochemistry, okay? Or you could focus on the chemistry of, yeah, maybe molecular chemistry, something like that. Chemistry, interestingly enough, out of all the STEM, this is really good for Asians who want to do like pre-med, right? Like, don't focus on biology. Instead, focus on chemistry, a chemistry of a certain system or organ or brain. And the more specific you are there, then to get really world class, obviously there's no neurochemistry competition. So your job would be to publish research. So that's how you get a bit more unique. You can always get more specific to get more unique. That is definitely one totally valid avenue. Oh, hey, I'm seeing a few um, remarks. Hi, Amy. It's so good to see you. Hello from the South Shore of Boston. I was just in Boston this morning. I was in Somerville. I was staying with my friend right by the airport. I was at a breakdance competition. Oh, thank you so much, Amy. This made my day. Hello, Ozudek. And then Joy too. I saw many college finance scholarship application advisors on YouTube. Are they trustable? I would just start by reaching out to them. I don't know. I don't have a list of who is trustworthy and who's not. I would still just try to talk to them, email them, and try to deduce from yourself whether you can get in touch with them. If you can schedule an intro call for free, typically a lot of very big, legitimate firms allow that. So you can get in touch with someone, a member of the team, and talk to them for 15 or 20 minutes. Scholarships really vary, guys, from student to student. Like, the scholarships for a student who's interested in humanities and writing and history from Florida is going to be completely different from scholarships for a student in Texas who's interested in STEM. So it really depends on also your financial background. It depends on many different things, your socioeconomic status, your race, even the geography plays a huge role. So I would just start, like, for instance, in my situation, I would have looked up Miami, Florida, scholarship, high school opportunities. It's really helpful to start with state ones because those are easier to win and nab. And then the national ones are definitely, they give out more money, but you have to be really exceptional and it's way more competitive. Okay, back to the idea of uniqueness and fit. Returning to the idea of uniqueness and fit. Another way that you guys can get more unique is by using this concept on the right, which is the idea of a double edge. So you might have heard of this idea of a spike, right? So a spike is like, hey, I'm really good at this one thing. And colleges are like, oh yeah, every kid needs a spike, right? Like, this will help them stand out. And to a degree, that's true. But this advice has been so overused, especially like even over the last 20 years, that it's become kind of ubiquitous. Like, the idea of an edge is now mainstream, right? It's like it's like swimming with the other fish in the current. So if everyone has an edge, then really no one has an edge, if that makes sense. So what we advise our students to do is to combine two really niche specific disciplines and then merge them together. Even better if one is STEM and one is humanities. So one student that I worked with who got into Harvard from Canada, and you guys can watch his video on our YouTube channel. His thing was biology and debate. So he talked a lot about that. And in fact, his essay was a perfect blend of the two, where, in the intersection of that Venn diagram, he's talking about the misinformation of COVID and how he actually convinced his friend to get a vaccine by showing him data, by creating an app that mapped and showed how COVID spread. When you cough, you can see how COVID spreads. So he showed this to a bunch of people in his community, and that's what convinced them to ultimately get the vaccine, right? So you can very clearly see, especially this is super important for Asians who just focus on STEM so much. Like, you have to bring in some sort of humanities angle. You don't have to be like world class at humanities, but even just having some minor like state awards or even just school awards will help. So that is really big. Some schools even really like a triple edge. So some schools encourage you to take advantage of our liberal arts education. A school like that would be Yale. Yale really emphasizes this idea of and. So that's what I'm talking about. If you want to get into Yale, then you need to understand that you're actually going to want a double edge at the very least, or maybe even a triple edge. Some schools prefer more pointy students. They just want you to be good at one thing. That might be a school like Princeton, who really wants you to specialize in research. And if you're world class in that, your odds of getting in are just super duper high. But other schools, like I said, for instance, Brown, Yale, even Harvard, they really push the fact that, you know, you have all this time to explore and look at, investigate at different interests, and we want to see the intersection of your passions, of your academic, you know, interests, things like that. Brown's open curriculum is a really good example of a school that wants you to have at least 2 or 3 different academic interests. Now, the other thing is that the interest doesn't have to be like a school subject. You know what I mean? So you could have an interest in a subject that's not necessarily taught in school, but is academic in nature. A good example of that would be like marketing or psychology. Technically, some schools offer psychology, but if you're like, I'm really, really good at some kind of marketing, and you can prove that through your work experience. Let's just say social media marketing. That's not the best example. Let me see if I can think of a slightly better one. Let's say entrepreneurship. Like entrepreneurship isn't really taught in schools, but let's say that you compete in entrepreneurial competitions, you teach entrepreneurship to younger students. So that would be an example of an edge that's not necessarily taught in school, but is still totally legit. Sometimes even picking subjects that are not in the high school curriculum, but you're doing independent self-study. For instance, data science. You can just take data science courses on YouTube, or even MIT offers data science courses on YouTube for free that you can start taking. And these are not offered in the high school typical curriculum, but they are all offered on a college level curriculum. So that's something that you guys can do in the summer, and even just over 2 weeks, 4 weeks. I have a student who took the entire MIT 4-year curriculum in 1 year. Like they literally offer everything, the Harvard CS courses, the MIT courses. It's all on YouTube for free. He just sat down, went through it all. And of course, that, you know, helps your odds of getting into these schools when you can say, I went through the course. I know these professors. I did the material. Here's what I built after taking this course too. So that's another way to hone your edge while also displaying fit and showing that you really understand and care about the program. That is also so key. I think so many students, when they apply to a program, they're not properly researching. Like, you have to understand what, just like you are swimming against the current of other fish, the program is also trying to swim against an ocean of other program fish, right? Like, they're trying to stand out too. So Brown's like, oh yeah, what makes us special is the open curriculum. And UPenn's like, oh yeah, what makes us special is our really pre-professional vibe. Like, we'll hook you up with a job easy. No stress. Or Princeton, what's really special about us is our research focus. Like, you know, more than a third or more than a quarter of our graduates end up becoming researchers and PhDs. So those are things that you need to know. Like, it's crazy how many students just don't know that. You really, really have to understand that. This applies for college. This applies for any summer program, any master's program. Like, of course, when I was applying for the Schwartzman's program, which is in China at Tsinghua, and they talk about Chinese relations, international relations, I was like, oh, this is perfect for me. I speak Chinese. I studied Chinese international relations. I was going to approach it from a business angle as well, from entrepreneurship. And so that's what I wrote about, and I made it to the final stage. So you really have to understand the program like the back of your hand, and then really understand how you can align the stars between your skills and the program. And then we'll talk a little bit about the second key principle. Okay, question. Do you have some videos to motivate teenager boys to become responsible and understand why they need to study hard instead of getting addicted to video games? What I would recommend is honestly the social circle. I think plays just an enormous role in extracurriculars. Like, if people are staying out of or staying after school to compete, or I wouldn't say compete, to at least join clubs and try clubs at school. And that's what kind of kept me away from video games. At least, I mean, I played a lot of video games, admittedly, on like Saturdays and Friday nights maybe, but Sunday through Thursday, I was pretty locked into my school activities. So there was just no time because I was too busy playing piano. Those were just my priorities. I was in clubs, and my friends were counting on me to deliver on certain clubs, responsibilities, things like that. Hello, guys. Yeah, we have about 9 viewers. Exciting. Please ask me some more questions. These can be, of course, related to the topic at hand or completely different. I'm here to answer your questions. That's why I do the lives, instead of just recording a video and then uploading it to YouTube. So I want to be a little bit more consistent with the lives as well, so you guys have a chance to ask questions, all that good stuff. I know some students have been wondering about when we can edit essays again, and that was one of the most popular series, that we did last year. So between September and October, I will probably be editing a bunch of essays with other members of our team. Like, you guys can send us your essays. And again, if you guys already got into college, these can be essays for anything. Another series that we're creating is a survival guide. Once you guys get into college, like, things you don't know, you have to apply for clubs. It sounds horrible, but you apply for like really competitive investment clubs or Model UN clubs, and they only take like maybe a quarter of people, maybe even less. So we can teach you how to write those sorts of applications as well. Or you might already be thinking about summer programs, scholarships. So you can send us whatever, and we'll edit it. I'll probably bring in like another member of the team, and then we'll do like a video where the two of us kind of bicker and discuss your essays. What's my favorite type of bread? I really like sourdough grilled cheeses. Yum. I like the Cheesecake Factory, like black bread. I don't even know what it's called. That's also delicious. And I like fresh baguettes. I don't know, baguettes. No, it can't really compete against sourdough. Okay, really enjoy watching your vids. Thank you, Yana. That made my day. Oh, you have a really cute puppy as your profile pic as well. I'm trying to get a puppy too. Hi, Milan. Well, thank you so much. Wow, you guys are really making my day here with all the love. I'm feeling it. So sweet. You guys are the best. I mean, here's the thing. Like, I would not make videos, right, if it was just me. I make videos for you guys. I would be a crazy person to make videos just talking to a camera and posting them into a void. Excuse me. That just makes no sense, right? Like, we're here to engage and to help, ultimately. That's why I'm always like, I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve. I really mean it. So the SAT, that is a really good question. Yes, I would definitely reinstate it. Now, the SAT, I think, was reinstated for a few reasons. One is because it ultimately helps low income, high achieving students the most. Those can be domestic, national American students, or they can be international students as well. Because let's say you go to a bad high school, and the average, I was just talking to my friend Damien yesterday. He's from a not so great high school in Long Island, New York. And the average SAT score there was like a 1400, which, by the way, this was back when the max score was a 2100. Okay. So him taking the SAT and getting a good score, he got above a 2000, boom, instantly you stand out. Versus I went to a school like Exeter, and like, let's say the max score is a 2100, everyone's getting at least a 1900. So if I get a 2000, the same score, it's not helping me as much as it's helping Damien, right? Like, everyone's like, okay, well, duh, you should have gotten a good score. Like, you literally had all these resources at your disposal. But if you go to a smaller school, whether that's a public school, a charter school in the US, especially actually if you are a international student and you get a great score, that helps a lot. And the other reason why the SAT has been instituted and is important again is because of the digital SAT. So now anyone can take it. You don't have an excuse. I do know that there were cases where it would be like students from the Middle East or Europe or Africa, like, they wouldn't even offer the SAT, ACT in their country, and they would be forced to fly to a different country. But that is no longer the case. Things have really changed a lot on that respect over the last 5-10 years. But ultimately, the SAT helps poorer students the most, and students who come from schools that admission officers haven't really heard of or don't understand very well. So if your school is international and you have a really different GPA system, or you take a really different set of courses, then having a great SAT score is going to really, 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 really help. Also, because a lot of international students don't do that well on the SAT or ACT. Okay, let's take a look at this question. How do you build an edge? This brings us to the middle part over here, which is the passion project. So the passion project is also something that literally everyone is doing these days. And if you don't do it, it kind of looks like a knock against you. In that respect, it's like the SAT or a standardized test. If everyone else is doing it, you're not doing it, it's going to be a bit of a problem. So a passion project can be many different things. It can be a legit business that you start from scratch. It could be like a high growth startup. That's kind of rare. But more often than not, it's some sort of service or service project or initiative. So this can be as simple as one of my students now, he is really interested in becoming an orthodontist, and he wants to be a dentist. His dad is a dentist. So what he's doing is his dad gets a bunch of these free dental kits. And so he's packaging them with a little bit, other ingredients and items, and then he's handing them out to homeless folks in his community. Boom, simple. That's a passion project, service project, done. Now, originally what he was going to do was a food drive, But I was like, that doesn't really align with your edge, right? If your edge is you want to do orthodontists sort of work, then we need to make sure that it connects to that. Um, so the other element is a stamp of legitimacy and just making sure that you are backed up by other organizations. So this can be getting featured in your local magazine, in your local newspaper for your initiative, and it's really easy. Like if you're you're in Miami, you can just email, like look up Miami newspapers, local ones, even state ones, emailing the Miami Herald and saying like, hey, I've donated 1,000 of these kits, and I'm running a fundraiser, a drive on like March 21st. Could somebody come? Could I get a feature? And if you email like 10 or 20 news sources, you will get at least one feature. And that already like will set you apart. And that's such a simple, low input, high output method to get recognized, because sending those emails takes not even 5-10 hours. It's really low effort, and it can count as a state or even a national award. So that's really, really important. Another thing that you can do is you can use your passion project to apply for awards. You can apply for service or volunteering awards and say like, hey, I've done like 1,000 hours with this orthodontist, with this donating dental kit passion project. So that's another way that you can do it. Or you can partner with bigger organizations and like a huge dental nonprofit, or maybe even like dental research or some sort of dental firm that creates like braces or Invisaligns, and using them to back you up, and just reaching out to one of the representatives and being like, hey, would you guys mind donating some supplies, or here's what I'm doing. But when it comes to the stamp of legitimacy, it's really important to do the passion project first, to do a very small iteration and then start growing it. You don't want to approach them with an idea on a napkin. No one's going to listen to you. So you need to show up with like concrete evidence that you've already started doing something, that you've already helped people. When it comes to impact, you can think about impact in two ways. You can think about it either qualitatively, or you can think about it quantitatively. So quantitative is like, clearly we helped 1,000 people. Like let's say we're teaching kids to program in my community, and we invite them to the library and we've taught 1,000 kids. Boom, easy. That's one way to quantify it, using numbers. Or we've taught 10 courses for over 100 hours each course. That's another way to do it. Or you can say, here's what our students have built, and you showcase their portfolio. Boom, easy. Or you can think about it qualitatively and say like, hey, we only work with 5 or 10 students, but the number of students we work with is small because our impact on them individually is so high. Like here's one kid we took who had absolutely no idea how to program a game. And then within 10 weeks, he's building like really cool platformers. He started doing XYZ with his computer science skills, and he's even teaching other folks and talking about how transformational your project is. That makes for really sensational essays. So you can write about that in your essay. If you have an awesome passion project that just has like brilliant numbers, then that's really good to just cite in your activities list, because the numbers will speak for themselves. You're like, okay, we helped 10,000 kids, 800 hours, whatever, raise more than 30,000 in funding. Then you don't really need, you could write an essay about it still too, and talk more about the human dimension, but those numbers will speak for themselves. So that's pretty much it. Those are the 3 key principles. There's another question from Ozod Beck. When I want to apply for a program, they usually ask for my background, like my ECs or awards. I haven't done any competitive ECs, extracurriculars. Can I also write my way into the programs? It's possible, but it's very, very rare. Like the extracurriculars are an enormous part of the puzzle, because you use those as launching pads for things to write about, right? That's why the second note says do, then write. The case where you could write your way into a program is if you have such an exceptional life story. Like some of my friends who were moving around, and their parents lost their jobs and they had to go to different schools, and they showed their dedication by talking about how they would walk to the library every day for 2 hours just to like get access to textbooks and read, and use those computers because they couldn't afford their own personal computer. Or a student who was abused for their like identity, sexual identity, and then what is it called? Thrown into foster care, and then abandoned by the foster care system. And then they wrote about how they ended up, they didn't have many extracurriculars because they were dealing with like some serious life issues. But they talked about how despite these challenges, they had a really bad GPA, like a 2 point something. And then they brought it up to like, a pretty high 3 in 1 or 2 years. Then those are the cases where you have such an exceptional life story and academic journey, then you don't need to talk about extracurriculars or awards so much. But generally speaking, you will need some some extracurriculars or awards, and they're not hard to find these days. You can find them through Google searching. Like that's how I teach all my students to find them. All right, so last question. Yana, Kevin, do you think receiving an interview or not receiving one means anything? Or is it only depending on availability? For instance, Yo. So it really depends mainly on availability. I think they have some sort of lottery system, and there's only so many alums who host interviews. Some Yale seniors also organize and host interviews as well. But typically speaking, it doesn't mean much. Yeah, I wouldn't really stress about it. And at the end of the day, don't worry about things that are outside of your control, guys. Just focus on the things that are inside of your control. You can't control whether they give you an interview or not. You can control, if you get an interview, how to prepare for it. You know what I mean? All right. So those are the things that I would consider and think about. And that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining. We'll keep it short and sweet. And I hope other folks who watch this a bit later find some value in this video. I will be back in 2 weeks to host another YouTube live. And let me know what other topics you want me to cover, what other questions you guys might have. Hopefully by then you'll all have a bunch of really, really great news. Last question. Okay, Joy 2. For a high school student volunteering at a charity center, if he doesn't start his own organization, how do you build leadership? So again, similarly, you can focus on entrepreneurship. So launching new projects within this existing organization and showing up to leadership and saying like, hey, I have this great idea. Like, what if we featured, I don't know, stories by doing this? Maybe we could help increase fundraising by doing, that. So still creating a passion project, but within the organization. Okay, guys, cool. Thank you so much for your time and for joining me today. That makes me really happy for your kind comments. I'll see you later. Take care. Bye.